Hello, welcome back to What is the Force of Stars podcast. My name's Phill, of course. I'm joined as usual by George. Good afternoon, George.
I'm sorry, I just laughed then. We've done morning. We don't normally do afternoons.
No.
And I don't think there'll be an evening unless some news breaks. Yes.
No, that may not be.
Well, isn't it? Yeah, we're back with a very, very impromptu list video. Firstly, it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you, etc., etc. Go watch the Clone Wars finale if you haven't already. Please watch that. We've already done our review on that from this morning. That's on our channel. Check it out. It's all over Facebook and social media as well. But if you have seen Clone Wars, please do check that. If not, and you've seen it and you just want to watch us talk about lightsaber duels, we appreciate that because we are going to talk about some lightsaber duels. We've not done a list video in quite a while. We kind of sidelined them for episode 9 coming out, sidelined them for Clone Wars.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first one in quite a while. And we all kind of agreed with each other that we wanted to put off doing the big obvious ones until after episode 9 because then you have a saga to choose from. Now we have a bonus of having Clone Wars to choose from, which does crop up in both of ours, spoiler alerts. But we're gonna kind of impromptu go through this. This was literally decided, what would you say, 45 minutes minutes ago? I just sat there like, we could do another video. It's May the 4th. Let's not just do Clone Wars. Obviously, we'd love to have Dave with us, but we can't all be free with a 45 minutes notice. Yeah. So if he's watching this, well, Dave, don't worry, I know what your number one is. It's definitely ... I don't
know. It might be joint. You never know. We'll see. So this is video number 5. So we haven't done one in a long time, but we might as well crack into it. We've got a fair few. I think, to be fair, we might as well start off with my one, which is my number 10, which is Kylo versus Rey from episode 9, which I believe we have on the overlay.
We don't actually have a photo from Clone. We do in approximately 10 seconds, but if you want to talk about this one, because this didn't make my cut by about 4 or 5 picks. It was very close, and I'm going to let you talk because it's your pick, really, not mine.
Sure, this is one of those duels which was highly anticipated, and after we had episode, here we go. Oh, I love that scene on the bridge. It's one of those things of when it comes to episode 9, it's hotly anticipated. We were waiting a long time for it. We had the duel first teased, of course, in episode 7, which may or may not appear later on. But this is a very raw duel compared to some of the other duels you'll see on this list. Both, Kylo and Rey are, at this point, they have been trained, but they're still kind of undisciplined, but also the emotions are too raw, especially for Rey at this point. She doesn't know basically where she is. Her head is completely flipped upside down. She has found out the truth that she is a Palpatine. She's trying to get to Exegol. And this duel is one where she just doesn't relent. This is more that, because of course after this, Kylo turns back to Ben. He returns to the light side because he has the memory of Han. And this is Rey's almost tipped the other way. And you can tell that in the way she fights, in the way that he's almost hanging on for dear life in some of those duels. It's one of those ones I waited a long time to see this one. I don't, and we'll talk about later, rank it as highly as their first duel, but it's still one of my favorites. It's still one of the ones that, when it came to the sequel saga, a lot of people dismissed the lightsaber duels. They thought Disney got it wrong. I thought they got it very right in this one. There's a lot of emotion behind it.
Oh yeah, I love this. This duel is one of my favorite scenes. What I love with this is that you're right. Rey's been training for a year, and we know that Kylo's been trained for a long time. And one of my criticisms on The Force Awakens is the really boring, how did a girl beat Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel? She's never held a lightsaber. The pathetic Mary Sue argument. And most people didn't know what Mary Sue was until that moron commented on episode 7. Luke, if she's a Mary Sue, then God knows what every other sort of lead actor is in 90% of films. But anyway, this film ended that to me was here's Kylo Ren that's not been shot by a bowcaster in the stomach pumping blood, which has many close-ups in that first duel as well to show that he's weak. And he doesn't want it. He just wipes the floor with her. This is what I love this scene. It's, you've gone from the fire of episode 1 to let's have a water duel. And it worked. The set pieces, the jumping, and it wasn't, people compare the prequels to a dance. I completely understand that. This is a different era, and I thought this lightsaber duel worked much better for that. This is just the aggression of, I don't even know if he's trying to kill her. Like, I know towards the end he's just he just looks a bit bored. Like he is he going to do it? Is he not? And then obviously you have the Leia intervention, which is a big part of this, and then this draws over. But this was one of my favorite set pieces from Rise of Skywalker, certainly. And as marketing goes, it was the fact it was the Death Star wreckage.
Yeah, well, one of the pieces I like about it is the fact that when you get to that end scene, it mirrors Episode 6, where you have Luke versus Vader. Luke cuts off Vader's hand. He's hammering away, and when he sees the hand, the wire's poking out and reminds him of his own replacement hand. He stops because he realizes they're one and the same. When Rey goes to stab Ben, she feels Leia, and she realizes what's happened. And it's that kind of it's always with Star Wars, as always, is poetry in motion, and it mirrors it very much so. And it's one of those facts in this duel. At that point, she's not winning per se, but she's putting everything she's got into it. She wants Kylo out of her way. She wants nothing to do with it. She wants to crack on with things, and he doesn't let her. It almost looks bored because he is outclassing her, but she's putting the emotion in. So there's a very different motives behind each one of them. That's one of the reasons why I like it. And it's one of my favorite scenes from Episode 9. The more I've watched it, the more this becomes one of my favorite scenes for just the raw emotion, both from the fight, but also what's happening outside. You have Finn, who wants to try and help, wants to get there. You have the weather, so you have the giant waves. I mean, of course, when it first came out, we had the trailer. One of yours and on mine as well, favorite scenes from that trailer. It's just Kylo walking through that wall of water with his lightsaber, and it's just one of my favorite scenes from the film. After all that,
no, definitely. I'm the same, yeah. So for my number 10, I've gone for a prequel one. I've gone for Palpatine versus Windu and the other Jedi Masters. Now, unfortunately, there's not one shot where all 5 of them are together, but this is the iconic moment. This is very much a meme these days for many reasons, many worthy reasons. But for the sort of Star Wars terms, you have the Sith Lord get unmasked, and it's kind of not Shakespearean, but it's so over the top, and that's what made it so great. You can tell McDermott having the time of his life in this scene. He's obviously been pretending for years to be this nice, politician, when actually he's been waiting for this moment. We know he says it later on about Yoda, but he's waited for this moment for a long time, and he just wipes the floor with 3 of them. You have the spin, you have the memes, and then you have a duel of him v Windu. I mean, they always tell us Windu's one of the most powerful Jedi ever, and I do think Windu would have beat him. I think outright duel, Windu has won it, and I think without Anakin, the Emperor was stuffed before he was the Emperor. And there's just something that's it was such a good farewell, because I was 9 years old when this film came out, seeing 4 Jedi ignite lightsabers to take on one guy. And then, now the question is the lightsaber kept up his sleeve, or is he doing a Force Skype thing with himself? Because I wonder that as a kid, like the lightsaber just appears for Palpatine, and it just made it like so much cooler that he's probably had that moment ready for such a long time. He's probably like, why has it took them this long?
No, it's definitely hidden up the series. There's definitely a mechanism. It has, of course, 2 of them, as you see in the Clone Wars, when he has Maul versus Savage Press versus Palpatine. One of my favorite scenes from the Clone Wars. That nearly made my list. It didn't.
Almost me, yeah.
It almost made mine. It's one of those that was. It was probably 11th or 12th. It's right down that cusp of making it in. But again, I agree with you there. I also love you had the scream, the spin. Yes, okay, people would always bash on that scene for him taking out Kit Fisto, Amagundai, and I can't remember the name of the other one, too quickly, and that's okay. It is what it is. But you have Windu versus Palpatine. That's where we're focusing on here, and it is one of those things. Palpatine was outmatched. Again, I do agree with you. If Anakin hadn't intervened, I think he would have been stuffed. I really do think so.
And I think with this, because Windu's been built up so long, again, 2005. Even I was 9, I kind of knew, okay, this film's got to finish with no Jedi. That's the kind of basic thing, and obviously he's going to turn to Darth Vader. And this was the moment where, if I'd have been at this age watching this, you knew Sam Jackson was going to die. He had to. They all had to die, but you don't think that age, and you just think there's going to be no Jedi. And I think it was a death worthy of him going. It was a fight worthy of him going. The electrocution, he kind of made Palpatine what he is. Yeah. It's a brilliant scene, and also the big thing that Clone Wars has done for this is that it makes Mace Windu such an arrogant person that I always laugh at the face he pulls when they're holding the blades together, and he kind of like almost not snorts in a way. And I'm just like, that's something he probably did. Like, he's just fuming that he has to fight him. But it's just a very memorable, worthy addition for me.
It is. It's one of my favorite moments from Revenge of the Sith. The film now made even more poignant, of course, by the Clone Wars. Again, if you haven't watched the Clone Wars finale, please go and watch it. Just it's so good. So yeah, we're going to move on to my number 9 now. My number 9 didn't actually. I don't know if it featured on your thoughts for this particular one.
It didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So we were talking about including Rebels and Clone Wars into the list as well. And I thought about this is one of my favorite duels from Rebels, which is the Sabine versus Gar Saxon fight, which takes place in season 3. And it's one of those fights where you have the Darksaber and you have Gar Saxon, who of course now does appear properly in the Clone Wars, is in the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic first, and appeared in the Siege of Mandalore arc as well. But he of course ended up ruling over the Imperial sector controlled of Mandalore. And Sabine, of course, this point had been given the Darksaber, and she was trying to basically free her family, free them from the Empire, and help Mandalore come back to what it was after the Imperial Purge. And Gar Saxon, quite in his own mind, but nope, this isn't happening, took the Darksaber. And this particular duel takes place outside the Wren household on the ice, where Ezra throws Sabine his lightsaber. So it's Ezra's green lightsaber versus Gar Saxon with the Darksaber. And it's one of those fights where, of course, you have two non-Force users using a lightsaber, which is highly rare in the Star Wars universe, but is one of my favorite moments from the show, because again, it proves that you don't have to be a Force user to be able to use a lightsaber, but also you don't have to be a Force user to be good at what you do. Mandalorians, we know, are prolific fighters, and of course, by the end of it, she beats him. She beats Gar Saxon and refuses to kill him. Of course, he dies by then Ursula Wren shooting in the back of the head when he goes around to kill her. But it's one of my favorite moments from the show.
I see. My thing with Rebels, it's not an issue at all. I've only ever seen the whole of Rebels once. I've never seen, except maybe one episode, more than once. And I've said to you guys across Clone Wars, one of the most exciting things about Clone Wars ending is being able to go back to rewatch Rebels properly now, because now that sort of gaping hole of what happened to Ahsoka, Maul, Rex has all disappeared. That's now covered, and that's going to have a very different impact on Rebels for me. Yeah. So I'm excited to go back. Probably today or tomorrow, actually, just because I've finished Clone Wars now. And I'm excited for this because I do love the Mandalore stuff, and I don't. When you put it, I was like, oh, I do remember it actually. And then when I got the photo, I was like, oh yeah, she did have a lightsaber. And when things start coming back to you, so yeah, I think season 3 to Rebels is the best season of Rebels.
It is by far. It really is. It's my favorite. It's
probably season 3 of Rebels as an entire season, maybe better than any season of Clone Wars. Ooh. I say that very nervously. That's a discussion for another time.
That is a discussion for
It's more the consistency of the episodes versus, different conversations, different times. We're just talking lightsabers, but no, I was going to put a video up before this. I'm going to save it to the build up now. Now that I've read Snow Dathomir, now I've had Saxon come up in Clone Wars. I'm excited to see his stuff in Rebels.
Yeah, now gives you a stronger background for who he was and why he's important. Yeah.
Oh, and also, we're not going to spoil Clone Wars for anybody watching. I do want to make that clear. Just a comment from Fred. Palp allowed Mace to have the upper hand. That's a very good point. I think I'd agree with you there. I think Palpatine was counting on Anakin. I think Palpatine knew that Anakin would go tell the Jedi, and I think Palpatine knew that Anakin was going to come back to help him. It was more the moment Palpatine loses that lightsaber, you kind of have Anakin's, not so nasty, stupidity of he's an unarmed politician and you've got a lightsaber on a windowsill. So I'd agree with you there, Fred. But I do think Windu still would have won, like full-on man-to-man, old school, punch him up. But anyway, so my number 9 is definitely one that's going to crop up on your lists. It is the episode 5, Luke versus Vader, their first duel. Sorry, Phil, I am not counting the Star Wars comics that had them duel straight after episode 4.
I wasn't including that in this list for very good reason.
Yeah, this moment, I mean, as a kid, you grew up with it, and it's an okay duel. As a kid, when you grew up older and you sort of not respect the Empire Strikes Back more, but it wasn't my favorite Star Wars film until I was probably about, honestly, 13, 14. It just hit me at a different age. It was also an age where I discovered that not the prequels weren't as good, but they weren't the best thing I've ever seen in my life. They're still up there, but then they're not at like the top of the mountain. They're like just below the final step. Anyway, this duel it's more the emotion of it. You've got the inexperienced Luke Skywalker thinking, in the words of Dak Render, I can take on the whole Empire myself. No, you can't. This is just Vader toying with Luke for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He gets angry a couple of times, but the crux of this is the emotional moment, the big revelation that's going to impact everything. That's the most I'm going to say about this one at the minute, because I know it's going to crop up in a bit, so we can discuss it a little more. But it is there on my list. Not as highly rated as many of us I've had, but we'll get into that in a little bit of time. And then moving on, we have your number 8.
Yeah, so again, we'll come back to the episode 5 duel later when it crops up on my list, but we're going to go to one that I really thought would crop up on your list, but it is the Dooku versus Yoda duel from episode 2, and it's just one of my it's one of those moments in the prequels where it's that moment of course for Dooku as well. This can't be contested alone by our knowledge of the Force, but by our skills with our lightsaber. And it's just one of those moments. You go, yes, bring this on, bring it on. I just wanted it. And the moment when Yoda goes, okay, you know what, I'm going to drop the old man axe for now and just go ham. And of course, yeah, it's a bit cheesy in some aspects with the amount of flipping that Yoda does. But at the same time, one of the reasons I love it is because it's just a little bit cheesy, but so well done at the same time. And Christopher Lee was an incredible actor and is incredibly missed. But it's one of those scenes that after Obi-Wan's been beaten, Anakin's been beaten, you have Anakin on the floor with his traditional, someone's had their part of their arm removed, and you have Yoda versus Dooku. And it's one of those duels as well that you know that Dooku feels he almost cannot win, but if Yoda makes a mistake, he could very well win, which is why he then brings down the huge pipe, whatever it is, to land on those two, makes a choice for Yoda between saving Anakin Obi-Wan and catching Count Dooku. And of course, we know what happens later on, which we'll touch on one of your choices. But this is one of my favorite choices because it's the first time that Yoda did something. When I was that age, was 2002, so I would have been 11 at the time. Yeah, when you're an 11-year-old kid, you've got Dooku versus Yoda. You got Yoda flip around everywhere. It's just it hits me in the heart. It's one of my favorite moments when I was a kid.
I never liked this as a kid. I probably like it more as an adult. So I've always had a very fractured relationship with Yoda. He wasn't one of my favorites growing up. Again, Empire Strikes Back. I learned to respect him probably age of like 16, 17, more so at any other point, because he was just the wise old man. There's nothing wrong with that. No. I just never gravitated towards him. And then, as a kid, I don't know why, I was just never excited by the duel. I never liked the flips. And what I do love, though, I love the Force battle before. Yeah. I know it's kind of cheesy. That's because it's just like playing tennis. What I can do, I will do better, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I love the moment in which he just can't even be bothered to get the lightsaber out of his pocket. It's the fact he pulls a lightsaber from his little pocket to then start the duel. Like, part of me wishes, was it Celebration 2002 when they unveiled the clip?
Yes.
For the first ever time? And that's like a month before the film came out. Like, could you imagine that in today's day and age, that they'd kept it hidden, that someone can have a lightsaber and then unveil it 3 weeks before a Celebration? To be fair, actually, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I love that moment. I just wasn't massive on the duel itself.
Yeah.
I do think Yoda would have brought the foot, but what I love, it's the chain of command. You've got Yoda, who trained Dooku, who trained Qui-Gon, who trained Kenobi, who trained Anakin, who trained, I guess we can say, Ahsoka now.
Yeah.
It's that pattern downwards that I absolutely love, and Dooku was like a really great gap for Qui-Gon and Yoda.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the duel. It's never one that I've been big on.
No, fair enough. I think for me, it's partly one of the enjoyable parts is just watching Yoda go from old man to crazy frog on ketamine, as people call him, to then back to old man afterwards. He goes, cool, got us together, now I can barely walk anyway. It's brilliant. But no, I also do enjoy the Force contest beforehand, where he's absorbing the Force lightning going, is this all you've got? It's very much one of my favorite moments from episode 2, which is my least favorite film, and that's a discussion definitely for another day. And we're going to move on to your number 8.
Yes, so my number 8 is, it's not one of the best duels in the world. It's more of a, I guess we can say, a moment now than a duel. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi versus General Grievous from Revenge of the Sith. Now, being 9 years old at the cinema, so I don't know if I've ever told this to you and Dave. I remember picking up an issue of Total Film at the Sainsbury's, like when I was 8, and it was like introducing General Grievous, and it was the photo of that the guy that Obi speaks to on Utapau, the white face.
Yes,
So I spent a year thinking that was General Grievous. And then the film started, and I remember like, oh, General Grievous is him. Oh, that's strange, because I'd probably never read the article because I was 8, 9. And obviously I went to the cinema, watched film opening night. I just remember General Grievous taking out the lightsabers, and then the forearms came out. And it was one of the greatest things I was ever watching in my life. I can still remember that moment, going home, getting the DVD many months later. I actually got it illegally. My parents are massively against piracy, so you can only imagine their delight when for my birthday 2 months later, one of my friends had got me a copy of Revenge of the Sith on DVD. Didn't go down well, but I absolutely adored it. And I remember just going straight to that scene, the 4 lightsabers. Now, the duel itself isn't great. It's more just like Obi-Wan is always going to be better than you. He has no issues. He chops off 2 hands. He's going to evaporate him, and it's just Grievous running off. But to me, this is more like the memory of...
To be fair, though, what happened for me that day? So I also remember the day it came out on DVD. And yes, I saw the film opening night. We'll come back to the duel in a second. But the day I got the DVD, I remember we went downtown, got it from Woolies, got the poster and the rest of it, got the cool special edition version that I had pre-ordered. I mean, I don't know how I managed to pre-order it. I think my parents helped me to pre-order it with the store so I could go down there and get it. I went down there, got it, came home, put the DVD in, didn't work. When I took it out, there was a massive scratch going right down the middle. Everything else was clean. There was just one giant mark going right there. So I had to go back downtown, get another one, come back, and of course it worked eventually. That's one of my abiding memories from the day of the DVD release because, well, it didn't work. But the reason why I didn't include this is because it really isn't a duel. It has moments, and it is a cool moment, but it's not. It's part a duel, but to me, it's not really a full duel. It's just
it ends prematurely, and unfortunately, in the newer versions, you hear clone troopers shouting before the clone troopers appear, which really aggravates me. It's more the Ewan McGregor fever. It's the hello there. It's
It's one of my favorite moments. But it's not one of my favorite duels. That's why it didn't even cross up my mind when it came to putting it in. It is, to put the picture back up, this is still by far one of the coolest moments in Star Wars history for me. And also when you get to do it in Battlefront 2, when you play as Grievous, cool, I'm just spinning as a neat trick. It's just brilliant. And of course, I have about 50 hello there memes saved on my phone. It's one of my favorite moments, but just isn't one of my favorite duels.
Definitely. That's kind of the same here. I know it's quite high up on my list, but I do have that. And also, I will add, one of my most disappointing things about the entirety of Clone Wars was General Grievous's how he was.
The Saturday morning villain,
Yeah, but he's amazing. He doesn't do anything, and then you get to like the final season. It's like, oh my god, it's the Grievous that we should have had many years ago, and we're going to see him for 1 second because it's happening during Revenge of the Sith. It's like, okay,
it's one newsreel footage, but it's the one that we all know and love. Yeah. Grievous just like properly brooding. It's that annoying part of wasted talent or wasted opportunities there. However, it's again one of my favorite moments, but not one of my favorite duels. So we're going to move on to my number 7, which is, of course, going back to it, the Episode 5 duel between Luke and Vader. Now, the reason why I love this, it's because it's the moments before the whole "I am your father." It's the impressive, very impressive moments when Vader finally realizes that Luke actually has some talent there. It's the moments between when Vader knows who he is. He knows who Luke is. He knows, of course, he's his son. He's just toying with him because he knows he's just going to drop this bomb on him and go, cool, I'm going to ask you to join me. I'm going to bring you to the Emperor. He knows he's going to turn him. So in his mind, he already knows how this is going to play out. So he's just toying with him. But one of those moments, especially when we have this scene here, is when he does jump up into the rafters and uses the pipes and the rest of it and kicks him down the stairs. He's impressed. It's sort of impressive, very impressive, almost impressive. And it's that little backwards and forwards before you get to before the part they go on the gantry, when he just goes, you know what, I've had enough, and starts lobbing stuff at him because he goes, just gonna get this over and done with. But it's one of my favorite duels because it's that first proper duel. Yes, I liked the Obi-Wan versus Vader duel, but this, Luke being my favorite character when I was growing up, when I saw this back in '97, this was one of my all-time favorite moments. So again, partly it's nostalgia, but taking nostalgia out of it, it's just the first time in the original trilogy you actually get a proper duel, because of course Obi-Wan gives himself up in episode 4. This actually has a conclusion. You do see, and it has the emotional bomb at the end, but this is just one of my favorite moments and one of my favorite duels.
And I think with this one as well, it sets up the duel in 6 can't work without the duel in 5. Not just common sense, but everything that's set up. Luke being very much a Padawan learner. You know, the moment in which Vader's just throwing things, he doesn't even stop. Like, Luke's like kind of crying to himself, like, what have I done? And Vader's just still lobbing more things at him. And what makes it even better is that at this point, Vader knows he's his dad. So he's literally just there just to abuse him for a couple more minutes. I think the scene's great.
Best Father of the Year award right there. It's like, I know you're my son, so I'm just going to keep on abusing you. Just keep on lobbing stuff at you until I tell you.
just throw enough. Nothing so that it could hurt him too much, just to get the lesson learned. I think that's what his plan was. And he's probably like, I can't wait to tell him in a few minutes now. But no, it's great.
Yeah, it really is. Which means we're going to move on to your number 7.
My number 7 is one that's going to crop back up. It's the first time we're going to be discussing it. It's the most recent of all the duels. It is.
We're going to say, so spoiler alert again if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, but yes, let's talk about this moment a little bit.
I'm going to talk about it very briefly, but I know we're going to get to it later.
Yes, we are.
I'm just going to start by saying Ray Park returning as Darth Maul doing motion capture. I saw the behind the scenes video about an hour ago while I was on my lunch.
Yep.
Big moment. The fact you had Ray Park on set with Sam Witwer. I forgot the name of the motion capture actress for Ahsoka. She was on set with Ashley Eckstein. Yeah. And Filoni kind of said this was a group thing. This was the two of them against the two of them. They all needed to work with one another, and it lived up to the hype. You know, animated duels don't really get hype. I'm gonna go back to that soon. But this one had a lot pending on it, and the moment you bring back Ray Park, you instantly have more pressure than you ever could have had, because everyone said for years we need Ray Park to come back to play more. And he's now done it in Solo. He's done it in Clone Wars, and it delivered upon that. That's all I'm going to say right now until we get to it later.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hold off a lot of my comments until later because it ranks very highly on my personal list for many reasons. So for that, I'll hold off the majority of my comments. What I will say, though, is for me, this ranks very highly purely because of that mocap. And we'll get to my reasonings why later, but because it transcends from being just an animated duel into being something that's a real hybrid of a lot of things for Star Wars. But I guess I'll hold off some of my comments until later on for that one. But it means we come over to my number 6, which actually is another animated duel, which does feature Ahsoka, but this time it is Ahsoka versus Vader, which is the end of season 2 of Rebels. Do we have a picture for that one?
Rebel versus... Oh... Yeah. I think no, we don't. My bad. I did.
It's fine. Okay, so whilst you're quickly doing that, I'll bring it up. So when it came to Rebels, Vader, of course, I was hoping would make an appearance. So when he appears finally at the end of season 1, when he had the Siege of Lothal, I was like, yes, give me this. I liked the Grand Inquisitor. I didn't put the Inquisitor versus Kanan in my list, but I was very close to. It's one of my favorite duels and favorite moments. But this really is. By this point, we didn't have Clone Wars saved. This was the end of season 2. This is years before we knew about the Clone Wars coming back. This is years before Ahsoka versus Maul. This is years before. So when we had Ahsoka versus Vader, this was a moment for me. I was like, this is closure for me for some of the Clone Wars that we didn't get to see, which was Anakin and Ahsoka finding out their respective fates. So the emotion behind the fight is there, but this here. So you have the Rebels animation style where you have the almost Ralph McQuarrie style original Vader helmet with the red lenses. You have Ahsoka with her new white lightsabers, which you find out about in the Ahsoka book how that happens, and it's one of my favorite moments in Star Wars history. George, you must read that book. This is one of my favorite duels because it also shows that Vader can be beaten, because Ahsoka is very much going to say, I will avenge Anakin. And Vader's going, well, revenge isn't the Jedi way. And that very famous line from Ahsoka is, I am no Jedi. And she just lets it rip. Yes, okay, she's not using her anger and her hate. She's not channeling the dark side. But at the same time, she's not using the pure Jedi method either. It's that very much towards the light side, but there is no real grey Jedi. We've had this discussion. But the moment, especially where she beats Vader to cut half of his helmet off, and then you have the emotional connection, it's a very, very powerful moment. And it's one of my favorite duels because, yeah, it shows Vader can be beaten.
And I think with this one as well, it didn't make my list. When this aired, I don't think there was so much hype on this, but you knew it was coming. From the moment you get that, is it episode 1 of season 2 where Ahsoka senses Vader, and they have that amazing the Apprentice Lives line. You know that they're going to rock up at the finale. And when that finale came, Vader coming down on the TIE Fighter, still one of the most badass images in Star Wars.
So awesome, yes.
And am I going to spoil this? My issue with this, I don't know how the next animated series is going to go, so it might look bad on me. World Between Worlds is my issue. And that really, that unfortunately took away the impact of this duel. You could have had Ahsoka. I mean, Ahsoka lives anyway.
Yep.
Spoiler. I'm not going to discuss in which the way she did, but you didn't need that moment.
So I'm going to put this in perspective for me. When we were talking about our favorite lightsaber duels, this is one of my favorite lightsaber duels. The season 2 finale is my favorite out of Rebels until you get to World Between Worlds, and then it ruins it entirely for me. I do not like World Between Worlds. I have very publicly stated it on this channel in our Rebels videos that I don't like the premise of World Between Worlds. Again, I don't want to spoil it for those, so I'm going to say spoiler alert here. Leave it a couple of seconds. Personally, I believe time travel has no space. No time in Star Wars. There's just no place for it. And I hate the concept of World Between Worlds. So when that ended the fight, when it ruined the fight for me, it was... So yeah, we're talking about lightsaber duels, which is why I put it on my list. Moments, season 2 finale, epic. What happens in season 4 ruins it. And therefore I can see why it would take it off your list for that reason. I purely included the duel because for me, the moments leading up to that, loved to pieces. And to be fair, though, the ending still has merit to it. It doesn't ruin it entirely, but it just does, for me, takes it and ruins a lot of it. But yes, so that's the reason why I kept it in my list, though, was because of the duel. And we'll talk about duels, not necessarily moments, which, again, going back to your Grievous moments, why it wasn't on my list, because I didn't consider it a full-on duel.
No, that's absolutely fair. I like it. I love the fight. It's just what, unfortunately, time did to it. I'm excited to revisit it though, because that's probably going to have a different impact now we've seen the finale of Clone Wars. So I'm very excited to get back to watching that.
You know what? Actually, I will agree with you there. Now that we've had the full arc of Clone Wars, I'm going to definitely give that moment with World Between Worlds a completely another shot and see if it changes my opinion.
Same here. So moving on, we've got a bit of a cheat thing here. My number 6 is the exact same as your number 5. So this is going to be a nice little discussion.
Yes.
This is from The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren versus Rey. The very first time the two duel with one another. One of the most wonderful lightsaber duels in Star Wars. One of the biggest revelations of The Force Awakens. As many people did. The moment that lightsaber went flying past Adam Driver's head, I assumed there would be Mark Hamill standing there, as did many other people. And it was the most ridiculous thing to actually think that, because actually it was so obviously Rey. It was more the music, the timing. But the moment that lightsaber connects to her hands, the shaking, John Williams' score, that moment, and the duel hasn't even started, and then you get a duel. Kylo Ren gets ready to fight. It's just raw sort of power. This isn't, I mean, you know, back in 2015, there was no Star Wars fans arguing. I mean, there kind of was because of the prequels, but they decided to pretend they liked them after all to change their mind about something else.
Yeah.
And then you get this, and this is just a fantastic joy. You've got an injured, wounded Kylo Ren getting absolutely he's battering Rey until she passes into the Force, and then you have the attack back. The first time I watched this, because I was so out of the zone when Han Solo died, I thought Kylo Ren had been beheaded. And I was like, oh my god, have they done Maul again? And then, like, obviously it cuts to him a minute later, just with a chopped up face instead. Massive appreciation for Rian Johnson for fixing that horrible mess, because it would have looked atrocious if that had been the facial design of Kylo Ren for 2 more films. So I'm going to say that immediately, but that does not take anything away from this duel. They want to kill each other. And, again, people will make dance comments about the prequels. This has the kind of ferocity of the original trilogy, where this is, when Luke goes for Vader, and we're going to talk about that later, but it's that vibe of they're just trying to kill one another, and you don't get it as much. I do prefer a heavily choreographed duel, I won't lie, but there was something else about this, and for Star Wars coming back after so long, it was the right duel to set up characters.
I'm going to actually counter what you said with the fact that I do believe it is a dance, but it's a different dance. This is not a choreographed fine waltz. This is more of a back and forth kind of a foxtrot, stylish. If you want to try and put dancing terms into it, I don't know my dancing that well, but it's what I like
different
is
style.
it's the 2 different styles. It's also the fact that when I have discussions with fans or other people who say, well, how could someone who's never picked up a lightsaber fight someone who has been trained? We go, you forget the fact that she has been defending herself. She's been using her staff. She's been defending herself since she was a kid on a very rough planet where people are trying to survive, and survival is a big trainer. It's a big motivation to get better, because it's survival of the fittest. It's a very Darwinian way of looking at it, but it is the correct way of looking at it when it comes to Rey's upbringing. And what I love is certain moments in this job. This part here is my favorite, one of my favorites, because when you have Rey pushing Kylo's lightsaber into the ground, hers up in the air, it is the diametrically opposed light and the dark side, with those 2 in the middle, and it really, poetically mirrors what happens in Episode 9 when you fight the dyad and the Force and all the rest of it. It's a damn good moment. But the duel itself, what I like is the fact that, especially when she then has that connection, she just lets herself give in to the Force and go, okay, let's see what this is. This is what my true purpose is. She fights back. Yes, it's undisciplined because the emotions are raw. She doesn't know how to channel it correctly. But it's that backwards and forwards, and it's also the moment of Kylo just hitting himself, getting himself hurt and angry, and trying to challenge himself, make himself as powerful as possible to prove to them that, he is the one that they should be afraid of. It's a very powerful. There are moments spattered around. Well, it's also a very good duel because, yes, it's Kylo just going, okay, you are nothing, to, oh damn, I actually have to try here at the end. So it's a very good duel throughout. That's why it ended up in number 5 for me. Yes, I have others rated above it, but this is still, for me, one of my top moments from the sequel trilogy.
Oh no, absolutely. And like I said, it's the first one. It sets up what's to come from these 2 characters. I know this is the wrong discussion, but Episode 7 is very much, here is a new trio, and there is no villain. Last Jedi takes that in a great way and says, okay, this is a 2-lead trilogy. This trilogy is about Kylo Ren and Rey. Drops their trio to do a duo, and that duo is far better than the trio could have been. And I absolutely adore John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. I love the characters of Finn and Poe. I do think they do work as a trio.
Or what ends up happening is creating some of the strongest ever secondary characters. It really does.
It has that, but also by having a defined 1 and 2 lead. Look at the Last Jedi poster. Rey, Ren, Luke. It felt a bit different, and that's what these films needed, because I know that Star Wars, kind of has to do here's a new group of people, here's the sort of the Poe Dameron, the Han Solo kind of.
It's your poetry in motion, which Star Wars has always done. But I agree with you. It became a much better concept when it became the duo.
And this sets that up so well.
It sets it up. Again, it sets up so well. But also, again, the reason why I put it at number 5 for me is because what I like is the undisciplined approach from Rey to then channel it to be better. And Kylo's approach of I am a monster, I am going to wreck you, to okay, I have to try. And the actual fighting style carries on to 9. By the time you get to 9, we'll go on to 8 in a little bit, I know for sure, but by the time you get to 9, it's then they are much more equals, but Kylo still has the upper hand, which is what we were saying earlier. But I just prefer this duel. For me, it's a much more, we knew the one in 9 was coming. This was unexpected, and it's why, again, I have that very fond memory. So I think, yes, nostalgia, even from 2015, still plays a part. It's still 5 years ago, but it's one of my favorite moments. But also, as I said, the duel in the forest, when it's that red and that blue, the lighting, it's just the setting is what makes that duel so special.
Definitely. No, I'm with you on there.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, we jump ahead to my number 5.
Yes.
As we've kind of done that weird little diagonal.
Yep.
My number 5 is from Rebels. This is, if I'd have told myself when Rebels was airing, this would be my top 5 lightsaber duels of all time, I would have probably actually laughed at myself.
Yeah.
This is Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth. Well, it's not even a Darth, is he? It's Maul.
Yeah.
Maybe the most anticipated duel of all time. To a point after 2005, actually, I think that's fair to add.
I was say to a point, yeah.
Certainly, I know the moment in which Obi-Wan appeared in that trailer that everyone saw.
Yeah.
No one knew this was coming. No one thought it would come, and the whole world watched. I remember watching it live on Disney XD. I never ever watched a single Rebels episode live except this one.
Yeah.
And 1, 2, 3 done. And like the rest of the world, I was like, what?
Do you remember our initial opinions?
We were angry, man. We were angry.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Dave was, but I remember being really, this isn't what I wanted. And then time passed by. And not just time, probably actually a day or two, where Dave Filoni, they dropped to Rebels Recon back when they used to do those, and they kind of discussed it and said that this was a samurai duel. And I was like, okay, I get that. And I still wasn't sold. But just over the years, the more I've thought, the more interviews I've seen. I mean, I'm not going to say I wasn't sold in terms of I disliked After Filoni, but I kind of dropped my anger. I was like, it's not what I wish it could have been. But then time and time has passed by, and it just becomes one of the greatest duels of all time, and it still counts as a duel. Although it's literally 4 movements, this comes down to the sheer intelligence of Kenobi. There's an amazing Sam Witwer interview on Twitter where he discusses it at Comic-Con if someone discusses the duel. But I remember watching it for the second time when he starts his episode 3 pose, then to episode 4, I was like, oh, that's the character progression. And then he changed it to Qui-Gon. And that had a big thing for me because this, again, it's the intelligence of a duel. Like duels were like, we weren't around in the samurai era, but they were very short. They weren't necessarily a dance. I keep saying a bloody dance. They weren't like 10 minutes long and involving scenery. They were like 3 or 4 seconds. Yeah. And this delivers on that. But what only this does, it's the moment in which you've got one of the wisest Jedi of all time. I'd say Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite Jedi of all time. It's the fact that he has no intention of killing Maul at all. He just wants him just to get on with it, go live your life. Obi-Wan doesn't hold regrets like that. And it's the moment in which Maul discovers that
something or someone, and then it's like, okay, you forced my hand here, now I have to do something.
Yeah, no one's just like, I'm gonna have to kill you now. And it's just such a brilliant moment. And you can just tell that Obi-Wan's probably sensed that this was coming at another point in his life. Yeah. Which is why he went for the Qui-Gon move. And if you don't know what we mean, you look at when Qui-Gon Jinn dies, they go for the same sort of 3 moves. And as Maul goes to up the chin with the thing, that's when Kenobi slices down in front of him. And yes, it doesn't show Darth Maul, with a slash across his face and body.
It didn't need to.
The damage was done watching that. Maul crumpled. And again, Clone Wars will probably reinforce this when I get to view it.
It's probably better not showing it. The emotional impact's better.
It was so quick. It was so sudden, so quick. And it caught everyone. It caught the world off guard. And again, look at the timings. Kenobi can't. This is set like 2 years before episode 4 now. Kenobi can't jump around, guys, because he's going to fight. He's going to fight Vader in 2 years and be slow. And it's the same thing. Like, people want to get technical and be like, you can't have Kenobi, do this and that. And they're like, well, no one complains that Darth Vader takes out a corridor of 15 people and then
Vader
has a
is
duel with Kenobi.
Yeah, but Vader's toying with Kenobi when it comes to that.
This is what I mean. This is like people's criticisms of Obi-Wan Kenobi for a 3-second duel, but can't criticize Vader. We know Vader's toying with Kenobi, and we also know that Kenobi knows he's going to die in the Death Star. He knows that moment comes that he is going to die, and that's before they even reach one another.
It's also that at that point, Lucas had a different vision for how a lightsaber felt in their hands.
They were going to be
like heavier broadsword style,
And then
I must admit. So we literally had, as I said, 45 minutes to prepare. So this duel didn't cross my mind, and you know what? I regret for not putting it on my list because of everything we've just said. Now, again, when it first came out, I'm publicly stated it's on the internet for you to see. Go back and watch our videos. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of that either. It's one of those points where you go, I had that feeling when it first came out. I'm not going to hide how I first felt. But after reading Filoni's comment, and after then going back and watching, because what I did was I read the comments, then went back and watched it and looked for the subtleties that I was expecting more. When you go back expecting less and you know the subtleties of them, but when you look for the subtleties, the duel takes on an entirely different purpose. And yes, completely agree with everything you said about it, but I'm going to actually put the picture back up just for a second because it's this moment here I love. It's that moment. Yes, okay, it's a moment before the duel, but it's that moment of those two toying. Well, it's Maul toying with Kenobi, but Kenobi just figuring out what Maul's going to do. It's a very powerful moment. The duel is very quick, and it's probably why it didn't cross my mind to put it in as a duel. And the more I think about it, the more I really wanted to put in the episode 4 duel between Obi-Wan and Vader, but I didn't because we limited it to 10 choices. I can't have everything. But this is one of my favorite moments all time. If we do a list of Star Wars moments, this will be up there on my list. But that's definitely a list for another day. In fact, we really should do that with Dave. Get a properly involved in moments.
Yeah. We're gonna
for sure.
We are going to bring these back, guys. So if you're watching and thinking we're not going to do one every 5 months, no. We've been planning to bring this back. There's just been other Star Wars things coming out, and now we've got a whole saga to pick from rather than, we had 8 films to choose from, and now there's a 9th one. Are we going to change our lists? Because so many people did make that trap, and now they're going to have to update everything. But we're not that. We thought ahead.
No.
But yeah, that's everything I've got to say on my 5th choice.
Now we're going to go over to my 4th choice, which we will definitely touch across later with yours. And I'm not going to say too much about it because I really want to talk about it when it comes to your choice, because this was a struggle for me to not put it as high as I did, because when it comes to Star Wars moments, this is my favorite moment of all time. But we're talking duels, and what I love in this is this is Vader versus Luke from episode 6. And we'll get onto the moments, especially later. And this scene in particular, we'll get on to. But because Luke's green lightsaber has always been my favorite, because episode 6 is my favorite film, I really wanted to put, when I was thinking about this, was duels. And this is better than the episode 5 duel, which is why it's higher on my list as number 4, because technically it's still not as great. There are a couple of moments, when Vader throws his lightsaber, because he goes, Luke has the high ground. Nope, not having this again. There are a few parts in it that I love. I'm going to save my comments for later on, but trust me when I say this it hurt me to put it at number 4 because the other 3 were just that little bit better. But I could have put the top 4 for me on almost any order, bar the number 1 slot, which we will talk about when we get to number 1. Reason why both of us put it at number 1 because, well, it is what it is. So I'm going to leave my comments there for that one. George, do you want to add anything, or are you going to wait until you get to it on your list?
No, I'm going to just quickly add on yours that moment-wise, that'll be my number 1.
Agreed.
So I will go into it shortly. We'll jump ahead to my number 4, which is, I don't know if people can say it's controversial or not. Is this a duel? Is it not a duel? That's the question these days. The episode 8 Slasher Dice Snoke's Throne Room. To me, this is a duel. Yes, lightsabers don't crash with one another, and it's not 2 people going at each other. But this is a duel. This is the moment in which Kylo kills Snoke. And ascends to the role of Supreme Leader, thinking Rey's helping him. This is the moment where Rey thinks Ben Solo's returned, and he's helping her for the good of mankind. And they were both completely wrong from each other. This is a moment where an entire cinema cheered and roared with applause. You don't get that in England, and that happened at midnight. The moment I joined in, I don't think slow-mo had been used in Star Wars before. I might have been wrong, but oh my word, the John Williams score, the music, the guards coming in at them, Andy Serkis's body chopped in half. This scene was just perfect, and I couldn't have asked for anything better for such a pivotal moment, and without addressing sort of the boring Last Jedi abuse that you get. I'm sorry, guys, this draw beats anything you could have imagined. You want a repeat of the Empire Episode 6 throne room? You'd have had that if they'd have kept Snoke alive, because that would have been the final scene of Episode 9, and no one wanted that again. This whole thing was a middle finger to your expectations, and that's what made it so good. Oh, Snoke's not the big bad after all, because Kylo Ren is. That's Episode 8, and obviously, unfortunately, 9 does change it. But anyway, the duel itself, different weapons, different styles. You've got really, like, not abusive kills. You've got people getting, like, shredded.
Yeah.
You got one of the coolest moves of all time I've ever seen is the ignite and turn off lightsaber through someone's head.
That was that was wicked.
What a way to end it. That moment was the pure silence, the room in on fire and everything. I can't fault this scene. I have looking up at my wall now, I've got the Mondo Episode 8 poster, which will be signed by Adam and Daisy at some point. I think there were 500 or 700 made. I've never bought a Mondo poster in my life. That there, when they're signed, is going to be my. I mean, I've got my Episode 7 poster, which that's more of a mission than a pride and joy. But if I get an Episode 8 done, that's just 2 autographs, 2 perfect things. If I could ever get Rian Johnson, I definitely would. But the scene itself, that's everything. No, because my problem is I'd want the 2, and then I'd want Johnson, because Serkis isn't in that photo and he's already dead. It'd have to be them 2 and Rian Johnson if I wanted to, but there'd be like proper sit-down signings. It's not going to be streets. That poster is special. It came in the best box I've ever seen. It's thick paper, but oh my word, Episode 8, to me the second best Star Wars film. But
I do love it, but I couldn't put it as a duel.
I get that. It basically depends on you. Some people say it's a duel, some don't. I get both sides of the argument. To me, it's the duel from Episode 8. Every film has to have one, and this was the one. Yeah,
you see, I love it, but I didn't put it. It's the same reason I didn't put Grievous. It's not really a duel per se, but it has some cracking moments, especially when you have Rey using Kylo's lightsaber as one of my favorite images from Star Wars. Is because I always like to see Jedi using the wrong lightsaber because it just looks odd, but at the same time looks right. I like weird stuff like that. It's kind of cool. But there are moments, I mean, especially this particular point here, when you have them literally side by side fighting as one. It's a really cool moment. And again, that hammer on, hammer off lightsaber blade through the face was one of those moments that I won't ever forget. And I love The Last Jedi. The more I've watched it, the more I've appreciated the subtleties for it, the more that I love Luke's progression. Again, publicly stated my initial opinions, and the more I go on, the more I love Luke's character arc in this. And it's one of those films that it gets better with time. I just didn't include it as a duel because to me, it's not a lightsaber duel. But if again we're talking moments, it's slightly different. However, I can definitely see why you'd put it on your list, but that's the reason for me why it's not on mine. However, I do agree with everything you've said about the scene.
Quickly, Raw fanboy, happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you both. You too, my friend.
Indeed, you too, Raw.
Let us know your favorite lightsaber duel as well. Everyone just comment what your favorite ones are. And also, is this a lightsaber duel? To me, it is, but I get both sides to said argument. But no, I don't really have much else to say on for it. It's just even aesthetically, visually, the Red Throne Room, the Praetorian Guards. I remember when this film was coming out, they had a TV spot which everyone was going mental about because it had Rey grab the red saber, and everyone assumed she turned to the dark side. I'm not going to sit here and think about what could and couldn't have been. To me, this scene was perfect. I didn't expect this.
They then did the exact same though when it came to Episode 9 for the trailer.
Yeah, but could you have imagined if they'd have switched positions, she'd have took his hand or vice versa? It doesn't matter because it didn't happen. But this scene opened so many possibilities. It shut down everyone's ridiculous conspiracy theories. Hashtag your Snoke theory sucks, which is what Pablo Hidalgo spent many years tweeting. And they all refused to believe him until this film came out, and then they all hated it because He's not Darth Plagueis. He has. I think the most famous one is one from Schmoes now. That
Yeah.
if anyone ever wants to have a laugh, just Google Jedi Council. Oh God, what was it? Star Wars Lands. Galaxy's Edge Rant. Just Google Galaxy's Edge Rant.
Just do that, yeah.
I'm not going to say any more on that because we're not a channel that normally do that kind of thing. But
But
that's called entitlement. We don't have that here.
But
I could be
definitely hashtag your Snoke theory is invalid.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like, as a channel, we're not really entitled. I've got my moments where I can get stroppy and stuff. Like, I do dislike episode 9, but I don't sit there saying we deserve this, we deserve that.
No.
I've never been about that. You know, you get what's given to you. That's what was in production.
Same. And to be fair, that's the one thing about this channel. The three of us just give you our honest opinions. We try to balance them out. We try to give you both sides of the argument and someone in the middle. We try and balance it as best we can. When episode 9 came out, especially, we very much had differing opinions. We left the cinema. We had the same for episode 8. We've had opinions left, right, and center that have been different, that may converge sometimes, others don't. George and I will sit here until the cows come home and disown Dave for liking the Mortis trilogy. And eventually he'll get his time to defend that. But that time is not now. We're going to move on to our number 3 duel, which is actually, again, this is exactly the same. It's a nice little crossover. Our number 3 and number 1 are exactly the same. Let's talk about Duel of the Fates. Let's talk about this.
This is the greatest audio, certainly. Well, this is the greatest soundtrack in Star Wars history. Why did I not upload a photo?
You have not got a photo for Duel of the Fates. How?
I don't know. I mean, let's be honest, guys. You don't even need to say. You can hear it. You can say Duel of the Fates. You know exactly what's being. I don't know how I forgot a photo, but anyway. I mean, do you talk me through it first? Because you were older than me. This was my introduction to Star Wars. This wasn't to you. So this is something that's been very much a part of my life as a kid because this is what I saw at the cinema. This is what I grew up with. This was my duel that I first saw. And I, to this day, cannot ask for anything else ever. No.
I mean, I always say I was the right age for Star Wars in terms of when I first saw Star Wars in 1997, I was 6 years old. When they did the re-releases in April and May of that year for the 20th anniversary, I saw them then. I was 6 years old. And I only had then 2 years to wait until episode 1. However, I do remember a time without anything else. And what I remember fondly is going to my grandparents, my grandfather. I actually have the newspapers still in my closet behind me. He would save it from the Sunday Times or Sunday Telegraph, I think it was Sunday Telegraph. The episode 1 pullouts they do in there. So basically before there was the internet or the internet as it is today, we would have that in the newspaper, and he saved me every single bit. Every single time he saw it, he'd save it for me. So when I'd go around there in 98 and 99, I would have these bits of newspaper, and I'd read them, I'd get excited for it. I've got everything for 1, 2, and 3, and they're still in my cupboard. In fact, that would be definitely we'll show you collection one day, something that I'd love to talk about. But so when I was sat there in the cinema at 8 years old, when episode 1 came out, this was something that was teased in the trailers, but not much. Yes, the music is something we'll definitely talk about, but the impact of when you are. So I was 8 years old at the time, so when I was watching this, perfect age for me. I was sat there, I knew what was going on, and when that duel first erupted, it was when you'd been watching 4, 5, and 6. You saw these slower duels. You'd seen these emotionally heavy, but slower duels. This is the Jedi at the height of their training, height of their power. This is Darth Maul at his finest, and this duel has emotional impacts because what happens with Qui-Gon, what happens with Darth Maul at the end. Spoiler alerts, he doesn't die. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a great duel from start to finish. The music helps, and of course the interaction with the space battle, no one really remembers that because spinning is a neat trick, but you're just thinking about this. And Ray Park knocks it out of the park, pun very much intended there. It's an incredible duel. And when you have Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon against Maul, and both of them cannot defeat him at the same time, it's just powerful. It's one of my favorite moments. And of course, it introduces you to that style of here's the Jedi at what they do best. I absolutely love it.
Oh, no, definitely. The Duel of the Fates, it is, each era has their own style. Episode 4 is, there's so few people left. It's heavier, it's more rugged, it's more emotional. We're going to say the dance word again. Prequels, Jedi in their prime. Sith, not really in their prime because there's 2 of them, but this is a different era. There's going to be different duels. These are people that have been in training for 10, 15 years at the Jedi Academy and stuff. They're going to know how to fight much better than anyone would after Order 66. and it's just perfection. The more moments, Ray Park, Kenobi, Qui-Gon, the ramifications this scene has on the entire saga. If you want to talk about it at that level, Obi-Wan had no intention of picking up Anakin, no intention of training Anakin, no intention of doing anything with Anakin until his dying Jedi Master to promise me you'll train the boy. Not one of the worst choices in history, because he is the chosen one. He did bring balance to the Force, albeit in a very different way, and time frame. But it's phenomenal. And the thing is, I know it's kind of 2-in-1, but I have to say that when Qui-Gon gets struck down, the anger and ferocity of the short Obi-Wan v Maul fight that follows up straight after, that's the kind of the attachment dynamic of Star Wars. That's you look at Rey when Rey's trying to kill Ren in Episode 7. That is Obi-Wan, I am going to kill you. There's no wires Jedi, no nothing that we get in Episodes 2 or even 3. None of that. This is Obi-Wan just Ren, I'm going to kill you. And that sort of 15 seconds until they do that weird thing where they both go backwards and like flash their lightsabers like that in the air. It's just so well done. And even the character moments of within the red shields of Qui-Gon meditating, Obi-Wan waiting impatiently, Maul smacking the lasers. It did the perfect job. And that's what you need in 1999 to show the Jedi in their prime in this new era. You couldn't have asked for anything better.
No, you really could not. It's definitely one of our favorite moments. And in terms of duels, it's right up there. It's not number one for damn good reasons, but we'll get to that. And we're going to move on to my number 2. Or was it your number 2 we're going to do?
Yeah, your number 2. Your number 2.
Yeah. Again, this, spoiler alert, we've already mentioned earlier, but this is one that you talked about much earlier in the list. I've put this very, very high, and it's Maul versus Ahsoka in the Clone Wars. We've just had it. Maybe it's because it's so fresh in my mind that I've put it so high. Maybe because it's very highly anticipated I've put it so high. But it's the mocap that transcends from being live action into animation. It's the quality of it. It's the ferocity. It's the raw emotion. It's the fact that it's happened the same time that Episode 3 is going on. There's just so much emotional weight to it. But it's also Ahsoka at her best. She's no longer a Jedi, but she's not yet Fulcrum. She is in a world of her own. She wants to help Anakin. She's just been, she wants to know why Maul wants Anakin. They're fighting over the future. There's a lot of heavyweight emotions involved. Maul is just out for himself, but the actual choreographed notion of it is amazing. But what separates it from me is the Ray Park mocap, the movements, the knees to the face, the feints, the dodges, every single bit that is Ray Park you get in that Episode 1 duel, but versus Ahsoka, and it is what we're talking 20 years difference between the two duels, and Ray Park is still an absolute beast from one to the other. But it's that definition of going from Maul being completely and utterly finesse to now he has raw emotion involved as well. He's more angry, he's more hatred, he's more driven than he ever has been. Because he's been cast aside, because his old master's plan's going forward and he hasn't got a place in this galaxy and he wants to hold whatever power he can and be damned with anyone else. The fact that he cast the Mandalorians aside, he has a syndicate, he doesn't care what happens to anyone else, he's out for himself, and the way he proves it in this fight is just incredible.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, it was the build up to it, it's the emotion, and this also progresses the story at the same time. Before this duel even starts, you've got the throne room scene where it's just dialogue, and that's what Ahsoka's going to turn at this point. She's going to take his hand and she's going to try and do something because she thinks she's helping, and then she says the fatal words, "What do you want with Anakin Skywalker?" Again, ramifications on the entire saga is met at this point. And again, I can't wait to see if that's going to affect how I view Rebels on the rewatch, because it's such a good scene. The duel itself was worthy, and there was a weight to it. Having Ray Park back, I mean, I'd love Ray Park to come back as Maul again. I don't know if he will. I would ever rule anything else.
Yeah,
because who'd have thought he'd rock up in Clone Wars? But if you go back to even 2017, imagine if someone said to you, Ray Park's going to play Maul in the Clone Wars, and you'll be like, yeah, no chance. And we were all wrong. Not that anyone asked it back then either, which says all.
No. Oh yeah, for sure. And it's the fact that at that point you had the combination of Sam Witwer and Ray Park, the voice and the body of Maul together at last. I mean, yes, you have it kind of in Solo, but it's not really the same. It's just him standing there having a chat. This is different. This is completely different. And it doesn't look like an animated fight either. That's the brilliance of mocap. It looks real. It just looks better. And this is why it's one of my favorite moments. Also, the fact by the time you get to this point with the animation style, it's just that better quality. You can see the earring in his ear very clearly. It's that very high definition point of it. And for me, it's just a culmination of everything. This was the one duel we were waiting for in terms of the Clone Wars. But when Clone Wars returned, and I was so glad we got it, and it was just, it's just incredible. And from that, we'll move on. Sorry, go on, yeah.
Oh, no, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, I was just going to send something to our chat group, which I've just seen breaking news. But it's not breaking enough for us to mention in this show, don't worry, guys.
Okay, sure.
But no, my number 2, as we kind of alluded to previously, the second duel between Vader and Luke Skywalker. This is on the Death Star episode 6. This is probably the most emotional duel in the entire Skywalker saga. Emotion is one we're going to bring up on the next number as well. But this is obviously about this is Emperor's plan, strike me down, blah, 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 I won't do it, I'm not this. And then you get a fight, and the fight's okay. It's not, the duel itself isn't brilliant, but there's a moment which changes everything. And the moment is still the duel. It's when Vader says, sister. And if you won't join me, perhaps you will.
Yeah.
Then enter the dark side. Luke screaming, the camera, the one take of the sidewards, the iconic blue, the green back and the red, just everything about the moment, and then chopping the hand and just keep beating him down and down and down and down, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing was seen by the Emperor. This is again, the Emperor's going to try and get his new apprentice. He's going to get rid of the old one. This one's been a robot for 20 years. He's probably annoyed with that for a start.
Yep.
But it's the power of this duel is the emotion at the end that Luke overcomes all of that and says, "No, I won't join you."
The Emperor's Emperor's very much a toddler. He was whatever's newest and shiniest.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Luke's still shiny.
And he's just, I did get his dad, so if I just replace him with the son, that should be fine, right?
Yeah.
It's the duel that does it. I mean, I do like them fighting in it. I do prefer it to episode 4.
Oh god, yeah.
Not 4, sorry, 5. Sorry, I mean, what?
Right,
the wrong one? I feel tired, but I'm not. But I prefer the actual fighting to 5. But this has at this point in time, this is the end of the Skywalker saga.
It's also the John Williams emotional music as well. That low choir hum that's then kind of ramped up as the emotion's getting more, and you have Luke just beating and beating and beating. It really, you get into it. It's one of my, again, we talk about moments. Number one by far. Vader's Redemption, we've talked about on this show before. We did it in Battle of Brackets on your channel on Cinema Savvy years ago. It's one of those moments. We love it. We've talked about it often. In terms of a duel itself, again, to wipe it at number 4, I couldn't. For me, my top 4, 2, 3, and 4, I could have easily changed the number on. They were just so good and so equal. But I do love this scene. So I'll save some of my comments from earlier for now. And again, it's the emotional impact. It's also that very much the lighting involved as well, as you said, with the green and the red. That it's also when the Emperor just turns around and goes, "Look, this is what's happening to your friends. This is what's happening now. What are you going to do about it?" And of course, he just baits Luke into doing it because he wants Luke to turn. He wants to force him. And of course, when Vader does realize, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, you won't turn, maybe she will. Then Luke just lets loose and lets his anger take over. It's his own hypocrisy and hubris that he talks about in episode 8. It's a wonderful thing, and it just adds more to it than when you go back to it. And yeah, for me, one of my favorite duels of all time.
No, definitely here. There's not more I can do. It's just the moment. And again, this in 1983, this was the end of the Star Wars saga. This was episode 6. I know Lucas had said he'd do a 7, 8, 9. We didn't think we were going to get it till 2012. And then obviously it famously was announced. And again, I'm not going to start digging at episode 9. But, the Chosen One, the whole thing that's been built up over the prequel trilogy, he's the Chosen One to bring balance because Vader does do that. Anakin does it. and it's the emotion that comes with it. And obviously, unfortunately, he transfers his body to a clone, but this isn't the conversation for that, because this at this point was the end of Star Wars.
We're talking duels, we're talking moments, we're not talking episode 9.
To me, episode 9, it doesn't impact the duel; it impacts the legacy of that moment. But that's a different list video.
It is a very much different list, yeah.
But no, and that's my number 2, and that's both of us. We're going to go to number 1, and if you really haven't guessed it by now, then...
If you didn't look at the thumbnail, then what are you doing?
Anakin versus Obi-Wan. This is the most hyped up duel in history. I think there's interviews with George Lucas back in the 80s saying that Darth Vader turned into after losing a fight on a lava planet, a volcanic planet, and again, I wasn't around then. I didn't know he said that. What I remember seeing is the original trailer for episode 3, where Anakin's got the yellow eye, has been built up everywhere. The merchandise, the Vader animation, the Vader logo with the flames going through it. Every single piece of marketing for this film was Obi-Wan versus Anakin. Everyone knew this had to happen. They built it up for years and years.
Even on an F1 car at Monaco, they still built it up.
Yeah, and it's a prequel. It had to happen, so you can get away with releasing all the merch of it. I get why you can't these days, but if it was a prequel, you can do it. And it delivered, from the speech beforehand to the actual fighting. This is the master and the apprentice. Obi-Wan says in the film, I've taught you everything I know. That's a big thing in this. People say, well, they're dancing. Why are they doing all these silly moves? They're countering each other because that's how they've been trained. He's literally trained him exactly the same as him. Yeah. And it's everything it deserved. This one needed that. The prequels
Which is why one of the reasons why I hate it when people talk about the moment where it's just the spinning, because they go, well, it's why are they just spinning lightsabers? That's just weird. You go, well, no. If you look carefully, you can actually see them. They go to strike and then pull away because they know that's not going to work. So they go to strike again. They know it's not going to work because they're countering each other exactly at the same time. We talk about Star Wars being poetic, and this really is poetry in motion, but it's also a complete mirror. One is fueled by the dark side, one is fueled by the light, but both of them are fueled by the emotions. They almost let go completely. Both Anakin and Obi-Wan let go completely of why they're there. They just know that Anakin wants to kill Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan doesn't want to kill Anakin.
But he's prepared to do it.
He's got to do what he must. Which is the irony I always love when he says, only Sith steal an absolute, and then goes, I will do what I must, which is in itself an absolute. Also, I would, when he says, only Sith steal an absolute, that is also an absolute. So it's the complete irony of him saying it. But it's hyperbole aside, talking about the duel itself. Battle of Heroes, the set piece of music, is one of the greatest pieces of John Williams has ever written. The actual lighting, the duel itself. My favorite documentary ever for Star Wars is Within a Minute, which is based entirely around this particular duel. Just seeing how much went into it, and it's what I also love is when George Lucas is sat there writing it. When he has the first draft, he goes, a lot of it's just they fight, which I love. But the actual vision we got at the end of all this, and the actual, the visual set pieces, the fact that you knew how it was going to end, but you didn't. You just I really could go on about this for a long time.
And this is the other thing, like, you don't know that Vader's got mechanical legs.
Nope.
If you look at the original trilogy up to this point, yes, you know he lost a hand, and obviously he was scarred and stuff, but you didn't know that he lost both arms, both legs. Obviously, we knew his face was a bit messed up. You didn't know it was like burn victim. There was a lot they had to do, and again, Hayden and Ewan, you mentioned in a minute documentary, so many brilliant behind the scenes for this film. The choreograph between those two, didn't they rehearse it for like 6 weeks or something like that?
Nick Gillard put them to work for 3 months to get everything right. Yeah, 6 weeks of full rehearsals of just this scene.
And that's like the bottom. There's videos of them like actually hitting each other's knuckles, and they've like bruises, and the scene was so good. The film deserved it. The prequels deserve it. To set up Vader, you can say about the know what we will, but this duel is understandable why he had to become Darth Vader to survive. It couldn't have just been, if it had just lost his legs and arms, you could have put metal ones on, it'd be fine.
They could have done Darth Vader.
The ruined body, the ruined body, everything. He had to become Darth Vader because of this. And following up from the duel, I know it's more of a moment, but the Obi-Wan speech with my brother Anakin dipping into the fire. that I don't think we'll ever see a better Star Wars duel than this. I'm afraid.
No, but also the one bit that everyone forgets when they talk about this is it's Anakin versus Obi-Wan. It isn't. It's Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan.
I still think so. I mean, I know he's Vader. At this
you know what I
point,
mean,
but,
though. Is that's what people think when they talk about it, though. It's because at this point, Anakin is so he has been turned fully. The Emperor's finally gotten his wish, and this is Vader at his peak. He peaks too early, of course. It's he overestimates, and we all know what happens. But it's Vader versus Obi-Wan, but also Anakin versus Obi-Wan. It's a beautiful piece. As I said, the music, the choreograph, but also not only the bit outside in the lava, but inside the control room as well. When you have Anakin beforehand come in, he kills everyone else. You have Obi-Wan come in. You just see a massacre. You just see bodies everywhere. And the duel takes place. You know, they even swap lightsabers at one point. And it's you don't see it in the film. They don't actually do it. But if you watch carefully, you can see when they have swapped. It's a brilliant moment. There's so many pieces around this when, again, they can't beat each other. They just cannot. They both know each other too well. The mirrors that go on. And of course, yes, Obi-Wan wins in the end, but he doesn't. No one wins. Everybody loses at the end of this. The Emperor doesn't get the full Vader he wanted. Anakin / Vader is ruined completely. He now has to spend the rest of his life in a suit. Obi-Wan has lost his friend, his brother. He's lost his everything. He's also lost the Jedi Order. The galaxy has been turned into turmoil. This moment really encapsulates it perfectly. And of course, when we talk about an era before the sequels, but we talk about an era, this was the moment we'd all been waiting for back in 2005. This is the moment that had been built up. And of course, I said being 14 myself, you were what, 11 at the time?
I was 8 when this came out.
Oh jeez. I mean, damn it, you make me feel very old, damn it. Yes, I mean, because I'm now pushing 30 now, and it's still one of my absolute all-time favorite moments, and it will live on. It's one of those, we put it number one for between us for various reasons, but it just has to be. It's just one of those moments. It got built up so much, and whether there'll always be those people that don't like the prequels. There'll always be those people, in fact, that don't even like Return of the Jedi. I know someone who just likes Episode 4 and Episode 5, doesn't like Return of the Jedi. I know those people exist, but that's fine. You like what you like. You are who you are. But for us, this list is our top 10 favorite lightsaber duels, and this is a very it's an opinion-based list. There's no fact. This is just us being us as fans talking about this. And as a fan, this moment, this duel, it still gives me goosebumps when I watch it.
Definitely, I'm in the same vein. I can't fault this. This was the moment. You know, you waited all these years. How's he going to turn Darth Vader? This was it, and you couldn't ask for anything better. From the final film of the trilogy. Again, when this film finished, I was only 8 years old, but I do remember saying that Star Wars is done.
Yeah.
How wrong was? I mean, at this point, you'd already had a Clone Wars.
I cried because it was over. I cried because it was done. There was no more to come. And
listen, you'd already had Clone Wars. It was 2D animated. There was no knowledge of another Clone Wars series in development. No. This was going to be it. And how wrong were we all? But that's everything I've got to say about this. That was my top 10.
Yeah, same, man. Yeah, it's an interesting list. It's one that we wish we had had Dave on. In fact, we didn't even get any of Dave's list. We all know this would have been also his number one.
I think he might have done Luke versus Vader.
Really?
I sense that. I could be wrong.
We need to get that comment and actually get that sorted. It's a shame we didn't have him on, of course, but unfortunately life does get in the way. Even on May the 4th, life doesn't exactly stop. But, that's my microphone falling over at the same time there. But, yes, I think that's about it. I haven't got anything else to add. George, anything else to add before we end the show?
Join us on Saturday for our prequel special edition discussion with boobanther.co, which we're looking forward to. We'll get you some more thumbnails out. It feels weird doing an outro for the second video in a day. It feels like yesterday, that Clone Wars stuff. But, again, if you haven't seen Clone Wars, if you do watch it, check out our review from earlier in the day of other reviews from Season 7. And obviously, this has been our list for the list video. We'll be back with some of these. We don't know when, but they will be coming back sooner and more regular.
Yes, indeed. So until then, there's nothing else to add. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Ones of the Force and Star Wars Podcast, at the Force Podcast. You can find the video for this on our YouTube and Facebook pages, and the audio version will be available on our Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and iTunes. And of course, our merchandise is available in the TeePublic link down below. So until then, we've been Ones of the Force, and the Force will always be with you. Goodbye.